crazy is spending your entire life doing something you hate because you thought you were worried about failing the other thing. And then like you're just like gonna live in that forever, and you don't have to. The balance, I think, that maybe we're all seeking, whether we realize it or not, the balance is in always having a purpose and belonging and being needed. I think we need to feel like we're needed anyway. And that's what I lacked until I went to the Darfur and eventually the military. That's a big one for me. It's just like I don't want to live with regrets, or even worse, I don't want to die with regrets. I've got a few. We've all got a few of things you zigged when you wished you would have zagged or whatever. Right. But I don't yet have a regret for not trying something that I really wanted to try.
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Our guest today has worn so many hats that he ran out of closet space to fit them all. Hey, Nate Boyer. Nate Boyer is going to join us today. His story is all about embracing change. From philanthropy in Darfur, serving as a Green Beret in combat, to jumping into college football with literally zero experience, not even a single down of any organized football in his entire life. Then making it to the NFL, starring in reality TV shows, acting in, producing, and directing movies, and now becoming a strong voice for military veterans and social causes. There isn't a better man on the planet we could talk to about taking and having the courage to take a change or make a change. Nate, super excited to have you here, brother. How are you?
I'm good, John. Good to be here, brother. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited. Yeah, welcome to the show, Will. Hey, brother. Also good to see you, man. I'll turn it over to you for
good to be here with you guys. We love talking about change because change is so difficult for a lot of people. So thanks for helping us today understand the road to change. John, good to be here. And hey, and real quick, if you're curious about attaining a better mood or physical health or mental clarity, check out our new show sponsor, Nourish. That's spelled Neurish. It's a powder supplement that can upgrade your health from the inside out. So head to mentalkingmindfulness.com for more information. Also, hey, we have our Spartan race on October 19th in Dallas. So join our team, and for more of that information, head to mentalkingmindfulness.com. All right, we got this one breath grounding practice, Nate, just to focus us up. So maybe close the eyes or just feel yourself grounding. Start with a nice little exhale out your mouth. Really hit bottom, hit empty, and then take one big inhale through your nose. And let it go out your mouth easy. All right. Well, hey, thank you all for being here. Thanks for supporting the show. Leave a comment if you like. You can do that on Spotify about this episode. Leave us a review. Sponsor the show. It'd be awesome. Nate, it's focuses on you, my brother. Great to have you here. We're going to dive right in. And I was really loved your story as I was studying you to get on the show about your in Darfur in 2004. I think it was age 22. You just kind of stepped up and made your way to Darfur in Sudan to help the genocide and the refugee crisis that was going on there. So what woke up inside of you that made you want to go out and do this?
I think it was a time in my life where, like early 20s are, I think, a big pivoting point for a lot of people, no matter where they are in their path. It's just oftentimes people are graduating college at that time, and kind of moving on to that next phase. And I didn't go to college out of high school, but a lot of my friends that I grew up with they were graduating, they were kind of starting their lives. And, you start to think about what you're doing with yours, or the lack of what you're doing with yours. And I think I certainly felt not necessarily purposeful, but also like I wasn't really doing what I was meant to do, but also I wasn't really doing anything that seemed too beneficial to society. The one kind of redeeming thing that I think I was doing was I was working with kids with autism at the time. So mostly, actually, all young boys who various range on the spectrum. Some of them completely nonverbal, some of them really high functioning, but still like tough for a lot of them to connect, I think, with others and their peer groups. So I would take them out to kind of do big brother type stuff, but also sometimes I visit them at their school, kind of try to help them make friends and do things like that. And I liked that, but I just didn't think that that was what I was sort of meant to do for the long haul. And beyond that, everything else just felt kind of like I wasn't really pursuing anything that I really wanted. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I was into. I was interested in storytelling, filmmaking stuff, which I come back to a lot later, but didn't know where to start and didn't know how to work yet, didn't know how to sacrifice, all the things that we ended up learning in the military. And one day I just remember I woke up on my buddy's couch. I was hungover.
Like
Yeah,
most
straight up.
22-year-olds, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just that's what we do. And he had a Time magazine sitting on the coffee table there, and I woke up all bleary eyed and I started flipping through it. And well, first of all, the cover had it was this woman in the Darfur with, holding her child. I can't remember or do I or even know if the child was deceased or not, but like they were both very malnourished and it was just like a sad scene, right? So I start flipping through the magazine. I read the article about um, the tragedy in Sudan. That was actually the title. And it just talked about the genocide going on in the Darfur and just this, humanitarian crisis and how they were understaffed out there and needed people. And so I started calling every NGO. Like I was like, boom, I felt this like surge of, I don't know what it was, but it was like you're meant to go there for whatever reason. And so I called all these NGOs. They all told me, you don't have a college degree, you don't have any special skills. Like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I mean, I've done construction. I've done all kinds I worked on a fishing boat. Not that I need to be catching fish out there, but like, I know how to do things, somewhat. And I feel like I could be useful and I'm young and I'm good health. I mean, obviously I'll fly myself over there and I don't want I'm not asking for anything except an opportunity to volunteer really. And, bureaucracy and whatnot, it just wasn't that simple. So what I ended up doing, normally I think me and a lot of people would just be like, well, I guess that's just the way it is. And you kind of just go on with your life. Um, but for whatever reason, I was just like, no, there's got to be a way. You know what? This can't be the answer. Like if they need people, like I'm just going to show up there. And once I'm there, they've got to utilize me. So I got my visa. I went to the AAA and I bought a plane ticket and just, to Chad, the neighboring country where Chad's just west of Sudan and the Darfur is on the western border. So that's where a lot of the refugee camps were being set up just across the Chadian border where it was out of the war zone. And I'm like, well, I'll just fly to Chad and I'll just figure it out. And that's what I did. I flew there. I got to the capital. I kind of talked my way onto a UN flight, got out to the camps, got interrogated, all that stuff because they were like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" But I had a 60-day visa that I had obtained, and so once I was there, that's exactly what happened. Like they put me to work. They were like, "All right, well he's here, and we've got 60 days." So it was great, and it was obviously a very humbling experience. Very like I was just overwhelmed with the gratitude that those people expressed for somebody that didn't have a ton to offer except their time. But their whole thing was like, I can't believe you. Why would you leave America? Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? To come here. And it's just like, well, I don't know. I think a lot of people, like what I discovered, this feeling that I had was like this. I'm very fortunate to be born and raised here, but now I feel a responsibility to do something with that. I guess that can be called a sense of duty. And so eventually it was that time that really led me to join the military. I actually got malaria the last week I was there, and this family put me up and like took care of me, didn't take a dollar, and they put a radio next to the cot in the room that they had sort of quarantined me in, and the Second Battle of Fallujah was going on, and I'm listening to it on BBC News, and it was just like, all right, I'm coming back to the States, and or when I get back to the States, this is what I'm going to do next. So it was like I sort of like gained my patriotism over there, which was kind of bizarre, because this is post 9/11, and not that I was anti-America, but I just didn't get it until I went somewhere like that and saw it firsthand and kind of met the people. And that there's a lot of narratives out there that people in those places, the part of the world, they just hate Americans, or they're just, I don't know what it is. And yeah, maybe some do. Sure, some do, of course. But like, not not largely. So anyway, it's sort of a long story there, but it was a pivotal point for me. Definitely, I'm glad you
For
brought that
sure.
up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that guy had that magazine on that
Yeah.
coffee table, man, because it sounds
Mm-hmm.
like it, like you said,
Thank you, Chris.
that was yeah, right.
We're still
That was the
buds.
foundation.
There you
Oh, I
go.
bet you are, man.
Yeah.
It seems like it laid the foundation for so many other things, right? So you've gone from volunteering in Sudan to being that Green Beret. So you came back, you developed this patriotism, which I think a lot of Americans, we take America for granted until you go out and you see other countries. We talked about travel last week on our show and how important that is to see what the rest of the world is, what the world offers, or maybe even doesn't have to offer in some places. But that helped you to develop that kind of love for America, that patriotism. So you come back, go into being a Green Beret. From the Green Berets, you go to playing football as a Longhorn. Then you go and you do some time with the NFL. Then you go again, like I covered in the beginning, to actor, filmmaker, and now you're doing the merging veterans and players, the nonprofit. So we're here to talk about reinventing yourself, and I would say that's not just reinvention. It's kind of reinvention on repeat, right? On replay over and over and
Right.
over. So you know what belief system gives you the courage to keep stepping into these new arenas, if you will?
I'm just a big proponent or advocate or whatever you want to call it for the whole, not just that life is short, right? And that we should take advantage of opportunities and enjoy it and all that, but just like it is short, and probably our ability to do a lot of things is even shorter, as we age, which
Yeah.
the three of
Yeah.
us are
It's
doing.
true.
True.
There's
Yeah.
there's
And
increased
everybody else
challenges.
is
There's
listening.
also, yeah, exactly.
Right.
There's also increased, there's increased wisdom, of course, and like learning how to sift through the bullshit and not get focused on the wrong things or distracted by the wrong things. But at the same time, like, I mean, I don't know if I would have done that today. Like, and I don't even, I'm still single. I've still never been married, no kids, but I don't know. Like at that time in my life, though, I'm glad I did that because a lot of people will look back later and with that regret, I'm like, man, I wish I would have, I felt inspired to do something, whatever that thing was. And I just didn't even try it. And, I wish I would have and sort of regret that. So that's a big one for me. It's just like, I don't want to live with regrets, or even worse, I don't want to die with regrets. I've got a few, we've all
Amen
got
to
a
that.
few of things
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
you zigged when you
Yeah.
wished you would have zagged or whatever.
Right.
But I don't yet have a regret for not trying something that I really wanted to try. Maybe it took me a little longer than I wanted to, but that's a big one. So I'm not sure where that comes from. I mean, both my parents are very hardworking. They both, went. My mom got her PhD in environmental science at Cal Berkeley, which is a great university. We think the first or one of the first women in her PhD program. And then my dad was a racehorse veterinarian for like 40 years, and you know, both just really hardworking people. So that definitely laid the foundation for at least an example of what work ethic is, even though I didn't really know how to apply that until, time in the military. It definitely, I, I think leadership and examples like that certainly open the door there. But as far as the reinvention piece and just wanting to try new things, it just comes from this, um, I guess this FOMO, you know what I mean, for any young people listening. But like, yeah, the fear of missing out on life, and it doesn't always have to be these just epic vacation trips, nothing wrong with doing that also. But sometimes it's just like, what am I doing with my life right now? And even though I've done this thing for 5 years, whatever it is, do I need to keep doing that forever? Or is it okay to just completely shift and do something else? And I mean, I think it is if it still feeds your soul and, you're able to, I mean, not put yourself in too many predicaments or hardships, you or your family. So,
Well, it sounds like you have a good connection to your heart, I mean, like doing the work in Darfur, like, and then, like serving our country. It's like, is that where maybe that communication with your heart comes in? You know what I mean? Like, and that's where courage is too. I mean, it's in the heart. I mean, I mean, what's your relationship to your heart, if you will? Because a lot of men that we we that may be listening to the show, like they just don't have that connection, or they don't have those feelings, like, boys don't cry kind of attitude, which is way too pervasive for a lot of men. But like, it's interesting, like the three of us, like we know what it's like to live a life of passion and courage and going out and taking risks and doing hard shit. Like what's that like for you? Like, how do you tap into that sometimes? Do you, what, I don't know. I'm just curious. Yeah.
No, I definitely do. And I feel like you're supposed to feel all these emotions. And I definitely fought those for a very long time. Like I don't think I became someone who listened to those or was, for lack of a better term, sensitive to those until I was much older, until I was, probably at least into my 30s, if not mid 30s. Um, and I'd experienced a lot of things, and great things, really cool accomplishments and achievements, and you know perseverance, and also loss and rejection and all the other things that don't feel great. You know what I mean? But when you take big swings, I mean, you're going to strike out a lot. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You'll hit some home
Maybe.
runs, but you'll
Very
strike
true.
out a lot. Yeah.
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 So
Very, very,
that's just
yeah.
the way that, unless you're Barry Bonds, somehow that guy never struck out. And
Yeah,
also
I
hit a
know,
ton of
right?
home runs.
Well,
But
you mentioned about hard work, and I love your story about like you and the University of Texas football team. And you mentioned, and another guy I really love that you actually spoke to is Colin Cowherd on the Herd. And you mentioned like he was having this conversation. I know he's such a fucking great broadcaster. He's so good. But he was talking to you about the Colin Kaepernick. That's another story, another time. But then he got into you and stepping up and having never played a down of football before, I mean, showing up and getting on the team. And you mentioned in that interview about being like hardworking or working hard, maybe than everyone else, like maybe you said, but also being mission focused. So how is these two things like really, help you to create the change and also overcome obstacles?
yeah, I mean, I think we all, uh, everybody needs a mission or a task. I mean, I don't know if there's an animal out there that doesn't need a job at some level. Like I think that's true. I mean, I've heard the argument because my dad works in or worked. He doesn't do it anymore, but did it for many years in the horse racing business. And all people are like, "Oh, is that you know, isn't there? Aren't they pretty cruel to the horses?" And I'm like, "Well, there are people that are. Yes, there's people in every industry that do it the wrong way, and there's certainly no um, there's no excuse for it, especially when you're dealing with animals and stuff like that. But if you've ever been around horses, spent time with horses or dogs or whatever, these animals that are very close to us, like they love a job, they love a task, they love a mission. You know what I mean? They want to hunt, they want to, um, you know, be busy, and they want to work, they like to play, they like to race, they do these things, and I think that we're no different. We really need that. And of course, we seek and strive towards more comforts, not just for us, but for our families and our communities. Like we want things to be safe and peaceful and secure also. But at the same time, I think we often feel most uh, happy and alive when we are in the process of pursuing that. You know what I mean? When we're working towards that. And then once we get there, it's like we're immediately searching for the next problem to solve, you know? It's similar to being in a combat scenario. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're,
What's the rush? Yeah.
yeah, it's a rush. And it's also like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about my, it's 12-man teams and the SEAL teams as well. It's like the 11 other guys are the priority that we're with. Beyond of course, the mission always comes first, but it's like, this is what I'm thinking about when, the shit hits the fan. It's like these 11 other people. And it's like, what's the biggest threat? Okay, let's get that under control. Okay, now what's next? And then once everything seems good, it's like on to the next mission. Like let's find another thing, to fix, another problem to solve. And then it's no different with everything else in life. So I just think it's essential to, I don't want to say happiness, because I don't know if, just the idea of happiness exists. Like I think there's moments of joy and sadness and all. That's the life, the human experience. But the balance, I think that maybe we're all seeking, whether we realize it or not. The balance is um in always having a purpose and belonging and being needed. I think we need to feel like we're needed anyway, and that's what I lacked until I went to the Darfur and eventually the military. I didn't feel necessary. I felt like if I wasn't here, if I wasn't around, like sure, my family would miss me and some friends and stuff like that, but the world would keep spinning totally fine without
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
I want the world to fall apart when I'm gone, but like no one wants to
Right.
feel,
Right.
you know what I mean? No one wants to feel like they don't
Yeah.
have like an impact. So
Sure, man.
Right.
We
Yeah.
want to have a purpose. We want to make a difference. I think it was Steve Jobs. He says he wants to make a dent in the universe, right? And I've been there too. I mean, that's I'll be honest. That's one of the reasons I joined the SEAL teams, was to have a purpose and to make an impact, just like you did. And then coming back to the dogs and the horses, I have a Belgian Malinois German Shepherd mix. And man, every morning she wakes up, she is on a mission, ready to play and ready to do something. And I have to work her, or she'll chew up my couch or my bed or something else. And that's actually happened, both of those. Um, and then I've got, we used to, my ex-wife and I, we used to buy horses off the track that, that maybe they weren't performing as well, and they would still need a mission. And we would, or not we, she would teach them how to be hunter jumper horses. And you could see a difference in how they came alive when they had a new mission. But that kind of leads into my next question. So, when we're in the military, or maybe as an athlete, you have these identities, right? And many people, you hear of people when they transition out of the military, or you hear, I know you're with MVP. I'm sure you get the same with the athletes who had their identity when they transition from being this athlete. They feel like a failure, or they feel like this transition is the end of their story, when we know now that it's really just the end of a chapter in their lives. For you, how have you navigated the, for lack of a better term, the grief or maybe the ego loss that comes with letting go of who you used to be?
yeah, I mean that's a tough one. I mean, I think we put a lot of stock, veterans and athletes, and probably many other people in other sectors, in our uniform, right? Or how society identifies us. We kind of feel like that is our identity, and it's not necessary. It's not necessary. It's not true. Period. But it makes sense that we would feel that way. And I think with the people in the camouflage and the people in the jersey, where both of those careers, while you can stay in the game in a different capacity, or stay in the in the military in a different capacity, like at a fairly young age, in regards to the rest of our life expectancy, at a fairly young age you peak. And there's not a lot of other professions like that, where you're in your 20s and maybe 30s, and it's like you're at your optimal performance level. You know what I mean? Most things, like, that's just the beginning. You're just learning. You're an intern. You know what I mean? um and you're a part of something meaningful and purposeful. Of course, you know, sports and combat, completely different situations and a different type of stakes, and all of the different types of sacrifice. But there are those things in both fields. You know what I mean? Um, and it's just, yeah, it's tough. It can be very tough, because that's the other thing too. We don't really do the plan B or the backup plan thing. And I think, there's obviously value in, like, thinking about the future, but also we're so focused on the mission right now, and we feel that, and it's probably true, it is true at some capacity, that if you don't focus all your energy into this thing, then somebody else is going to take my spot, or I'm not going to meet the standard, or whatever that is. And in sport, I think even more so in sports, because there's always that next guy trying to take your job, and it's hyper competitive. And there's only, take the NFL, there's only 32 teams. That means there's only 32 starting quarterbacks, or whatever. And there's thousands, if not millions, that want to be that. You know what I mean? So that's great. That's tough. And you have to just, Tom Brady is a great example. Like, obviously, probably the greatest example. A guy played for 23 years or something and won 7 Super Bowls, and wasn't the best athlete in the world, but just his whole 24/7 was just the mission, was winning the next Super Bowl.
And
Everything,
hard
Tom
work.
Brady's
yeah.
Tom Brady's first Super Bowl was my Hell Week kickoff.
Oh,
and
wow.
we
Oh
got
my
together
God.
as a class, a buds class, on the training compound to watch that. And it was the Rams versus the Pats, Super Bowl 36. And we got together as a class thinking that it would be a good idea to eat a whole bunch of pizza and drink some soda right before Hell Week kicked off. And
Yeah, genius.
it kicked off literally within an hour after the game. And we regretted every second of it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But
Pizza and
that's
soda was
another
all over the beach, I imagine.
yeah,
I was gonna
indeed,
say,
indeed.
you said that better than I would, Nate.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But that, yeah,
Oh,
I mean, but
yeah,
everything to speak on food, everything the guy put in his body and every rep, everything was just very, precise. And it's like, yeah, so that's just what it takes to be great. And I think that when that ends, whether even if you were planned retirement, say you were in the teams for 20 years and it's like, or 30 years or whatever it is, and you think you're ready, and then you get out, it's like a month later, not everybody, but most of us, a lot of us are just like, what am I doing now? What I did the vacation, I took my breath, I took the breath, and now I'm just like, I'm stir crazy. The silence is killing me. The lack of chaos. You know,
Yep.
Tyler Gray told me one time, he was like, I don't even, and I used it in the we made a movie about MVP. I know we'll talk about MVP a bit, but
yeah,
Yeah.
I used the line in the movie where it's like, most of my post traumatic stress is from lack of traumatic stress. And that was something that, Tyler had said once, and it just really hit me because I'm like, dude, that's so me. I mean, everybody's got a different
Wow.
yeah.
experience with that, but that
Right,
Yeah.
just,
right.
it hit me because I was like, that is what it is. It's the lack of the chaos, that
The
I
adrenaline.
miss, because that just made me
Right.
feel purposeful, because I'm like,
Yeah,
here we go,
Yeah.
yeah.
time to
Well,
fix things.
yeah. Well, you become alive. We get rewarded for change. We get rewarded for putting ourselves out there, for taking risks, like for being, to do something higher than ourselves, like to work with some sort of purpose. And it's like I could see, like, or just from you talking and looking at your career and what you've done, and you're only like, what are you, 45 now or something like that, which is incredible.
44,
You're
easy,
40, okay, sorry,
easy.
sorry, okay, sorry. You're the young man here. John's the oldest one. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm not.
I know I'm the
I
oldest one.
look the oldest.
Age is just a number. Don't they say that?
It is
But
until it's not.
yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly. Well, I mean, all these different hats you've worn, all these different careers that you've been a part of, there must be a tremendous learning curve in each one, which can be very humbling and very uncomfortable. Like, how do you deal with that humility and the discomfort that
Mm.
comes with like trying a new fucking thing? It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I mean, that sort of ended with, honestly, even during the military. I mean, I was 23 when I signed and went off, and that was even old going into, it wasn't really old for the Q course, and it wasn't old for special forces, but it was definitely old for basic training. You know what I mean? And so a little bit of that was like, okay, well, so what? There was a guy in my basic training class that was 28 or 29, and so it's like, I'm not that old. I'm just, it's fine. And then that certainly escalated even more when I, walked on at Texas at 29.
I know,
Um,
it's crazy.
Dude,
and
nuts.
and
Yeah.
so, and just being
Yeah.
a college student that's, I'm 10 years older than the other freshmen. It's definitely, um, it was probably more weird to them than it was to me. I just was like, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
this is, I guess, my path. I mean, there was times where it was like, I remember, how like when you're in high school and every year the new freshman came in, you're like, that is a child. Like,
Yes.
how is
Yeah.
that?
Right. Yeah.
There's no way I looked like that when I was a freshman. And you just didn't realize
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was, it was
Yeah.
like that
Exactly.
10X in college, like seeing the new freshman
Right.
on campus. I'm like, that is a kid, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy. Um, but, yeah, but it was like, even in the locker room, with the Longhorns, like the young men, I should say, not kids, that I played with, like, it didn't take long for I think, at least from my perspective, to feel like I kind of did just like fit in, even though I was older than them, and I realized that, I recognized that, but I also kind of knew my role. I didn't feel that as disconnected as I thought I would. Um, Going into it, I thought that was going to be the biggest challenge of me going back to school and trying to be, play football was the social aspect. I'm like, this is going to be, that's one of the reasons I went to Texas. I went to, because Austin was, a good sized city. And I was like, well, at least if I don't get along with anybody in college, like if I just can't, you know, if I don't fit in, I'll be able to meet people, make friends outside of the university because I'd never been to, I mean, I'd been to Texas, but I never lived in Texas. I didn't know anybody there. So, yeah, so that was like, it's just, yeah, it's
Why'd
one of
you
those
choose
things.
Texas? Why'd you choose UT? Like it just sorry,
I mean,
side
I
note.
loved
Like, yeah, why?
Austin. I loved Austin. The school, it's a great school. It's got a legendary football program. I mean, it just checked all the boxes, even though it was a new place. But that was part of it. I wanted to go to a new place. I think I do embrace change, as you guys, sort of mentioned. I like that. I like a different experience, a new experience. It's just something. Um, you know, I'm just comfortable in the discomfort of that. Like I do like uh I do like a shakeup. I think I get I'm not a big routine guy, and that's something that a lot of people are surprised about with from the military thing. I mean, doesn't mean I'm not regimented and disciplined, but I just don't. I like to do things different. I like to do a different workout every day. I don't have like a strict diet plan or I need to eat these things and like the meal plan. I just kind of I try to do everything healthy. I try to eat healthy. I try to when I'm as long as you're doing something exercise wise, I think you're going to get a lot out of that.
You
You don't
sound
have
like you
to.
like to experiment and play with things, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
just
yeah,
try different things on, which is like, I mean, I appreciate that because that's something that I can definitely identify with. But it's like that can be really challenging for other people, just because like we're
I
maybe you got a
understand. Yeah,
parent that's like, yeah, and it's just like fascinating. And but I feel like we get so much more out of life when we really experience things with this like playful mindset and there's or just like a creative mindset as well, which is kind of a part of that playfulness.
yeah. No, I mean, I think that goes back to the animal thing. I think, look, everyone's like, well, dogs love routine. They do love routine. I'm like, they do because they're addicted to it, though. I think if when you take dogs, for example, and put them around different environments, if when they're not familiar to, yeah, they might be scared at first, but like I remember the first time we took our dog to the beach, when I was a kid, and we lived in California, but he'd just never been to the ocean. And we first get out there and it's like it's kind of cold and windy and it's like this big crazy the waves, like that's probably for an animal that or a child that's never seen that, it's going to be like whoa. But once he got in the water and he's going crazy, he was having the time of his life. It was the greatest day of his life, and it was near the end of his life, you know what I mean? And he's ripping up and down the coastline, and I'm like, that's a great example of like, yes, they love routine, but it's probably a lot of it's because we get comfortable in it and we are a bit addicted to it because there's no surprises. We know what to expect.
Right.
And
Safe.
yeah, it's safe. It's safe.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that ultimately, but at least for me, I would always, I think it would bother me that there is other stuff out there that maybe I should experience that could really open my eyes or turn me on to something new and take me down another path that um I don't know. There's just a lot to experience in this life, and I think we should.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So we've talked about your time in the Green Berets. We talked about your volunteering time, your time with the Longhorns, and I know you went and did a short stint with what Seattle Seahawks, right, as a long snapper. Um, so your passion for the military, your passion for the athletes, that I believe led to merging veterans and players, the MVP program or organization that you helped to found. And we've had JC Glick on the show before. I think JC played a major role with MVP. Now he's the CEO of the Commit Foundation, another phenomenal foundation or organization. So that's a long intro to my question. Can you just tell us about MVP? What is it? What's happening there, and what inspired you to found it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, huge shout out to JC. He really did help us a lot, especially because he kind of came into the fold right before COVID. And so making that transition from us just doing sort of, in person, bringing together vets and athletes and working out in the gym and doing and huddling up and all that to this virtual, world that we live in now. I mean, obviously we're doing this.
Yeah.
Probably because of COVID, I don't know, but
Yeah.
like
A hundred
partially
percent.
anyway. Like
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
it's very interesting. But anyway, yeah, he was instrumental in us kind of making that shift and reaching the masses and more people across the country. And now we've got ten chapters, and we're growing, like physical chapters, but we're growing leaps and bounds, and a lot of that is through this interface now. But yeah, so I did my time on active duty in SF, and then when I went to college, I transitioned into the National Guard, into 19th Special Forces Group, and actually would deploy. I deployed every summer while I was playing college ball. So I had this uniform and purpose and like constant chaos, honestly, and just this like the 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 tempo, like high tempo life, where it was like I'm going to class, I'm playing football, I take my finals early, I go to Afghanistan, I come back 3.5 months later, I go to training camp, I go right into school again, and the football season, and it's just like go 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 go, and I chose all of it, I loved all of it, not complaining. But then um, I think football's over after college. I get an opportunity with the Seahawks, which was a very welcome surprise. And I only played in one game, but it was, just an amazing opportunity. I was up there in Seattle for about 5 months, and I was once again like all my energy into that. Now I'm out of the military, so now I can just purely focus on football, and I get to play in that one game, and I lead the team out of the tunnel with the American flag, like I got to do in college, and I'm like bawling on the sidelines when the anthem is playing, and just this really cool experience. And then 3 days later, I'm cut, and that's
Oh,
it. Like the
Still
backup
though, dude,
quarterback, yeah, the
yeah.
backup quarterback got injured. They had to bring in another quarterback, and it didn't make sense to have two long
been needed.
snappers on the roster. So that
Yeah.
was that was it. And the other long snapper was better. He'd been there 6 years. He was also about 6 years younger than me. Um, but he was
Yeah.
better, and he
Old
deserved
man.
the job, and he deserved the job. So I was done, and that was like all of a sudden, in the past, if something like that happened, it's like, well, I still got the military, I still got this other team. I didn't have that team, and all of a sudden, it's like all my shit's going into a garbage bag, leaving the locker room, getting on a flight, going back home, and I just don't even know what's next. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, that happens to people all the time. But I just like quickly panicked. Like within days, I was just like, what am I going to do with my life? What's next? I'm sure I go back in the military. I was 34, so I wasn't like that old. I could have. So I considered that. And I'd met Jay Glazer, who, he's a Fox NFL Sunday analyst, and, um, big mental health advocate, not necessarily at the time yet, but has become one since. But he just had a lot of respect for folks in the military, because he was in New York City on 9/11. He lost one of his best friends to the attacks, um, and then of course he is, through his work in the MMA world and the football world, he's just met so many athletes and coaches and people around sports that have really, he's seen these guys often go into a very dark place when it's over, right? Because it happens like that more often than not. You are just cut, or you have a career ending injury, or whatever it is. And it's like one day you're on top of the world, the next day you're lost in the sauce. And so Jay, I had trained at his gym in preparation for that opportunity in Seattle, and his was in Los Angeles. He's since sold it, but anyway, at the time, it was a place called Unbreakable Performance Center. And I went into the gym, and I'd met him, and he'd helped prepare me for that opportunity in Seattle. And so after I got cut, I came back here. I stayed in his casita for a few days. It turned into a month actually, and trying to figure it out. And he was just like, "All right, just slow down. Like, you can go back in the military if you want, or figure out whatever crazy thing you're going to do next. Um, but let me just pitch you this thing." He's like, "I think I've seen it with you, and I know you've seen it with a lot of vets, and I've seen it with a lot of athletes, like this like loss of identity and purpose when it ends, and still being very young and sort of feeling like the sky is falling and all this stuff because you put all those eggs in that basket. And there's nothing wrong with that. You kind of had to get where you got, but you need to know that it's okay. And there's a lot of other stuff you can do. You can repurpose and reharness that, that energy into something else, and it's going to be great. You just need to, ease into that, And I think he's like, I would like to start a foundation, an organization that helps people like in the situation that you're in. Not necessarily guys that did both, but just guys that did either one that sort of have that mutual respect for the other side. Because athletes look up to vets. A lot of vets look up to athletes, and there is that common bond as far as, everything beyond the actual field we're playing on or fighting on. Like that is different, of course. But the rest of it, the camaraderie, the structure, all those things, as we just discussed, are very similar. So that's why we started merging vets and players. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, being laser focused on one mission for years, right? I went to this program. I think JC also went to it after, called Tuck Next Step. I'm sure you're familiar with it, Nate.
I'm not. Tuck Next Step. I need to check it out.
So Tuck Next Step. It's at Dartmouth University. Their business school is Tuck, and they have a 10-day crash course for business for transitioning service members and transitioning athletes. And day one, it's just this room. Everybody kind of goes in there, and all the athletes are on one side. You've got gold medalists, former NBA players, all these guys and gals. And I'll tell you, the gold medalists or the Olympic athletes, you think they have it made. No, they don't, man. Those folks live a hard life after they get cut. Like it could come down to tenths of a second, maybe even hundreds of a second, and they lose their stipend. But anyhow, so we've got all the athletes on one side of this big room, and we got all the service members on the other side, and we're both looking across the room and like, oh my gosh, those are athletes, and they're looking over us like those are SEALs and Green Berets. And then the next day we go into class, and it's one athlete, one service member, one athlete, one service member, and we sit there and talk, and there's a lot of overlap there in what it is we're experiencing. And I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary The Weight of Gold with Michael Phelps, and basically it's how these athletes, they have so much pressure to perform, and then as soon as they're done, they're kind of thrown to the wolves. So I love what you're doing with MVP. I mean, that's a powerful mission that you guys have. So congrats on doing that, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd talked to, there's a gentleman named Trey Hardy who was a decathlete, I believe a silver medalist that played at Texas, or competed at Texas, I should say, went to UT. And then also a good friend of mine, Leo Manzano, who won the silver medal in the mile in, I believe, in the 2012 games. And both of those guys, silver medalists, went through some really tough stuff and are now, back training folks, and like kind of back. It took them a while to get back to the sport because it was like, it's one of those things. You feel like a pariah. You feel like when it's over, you feel like you shouldn't. You're just like, I need to get away from this because I'm not needed anymore. But what Trey had told me, at least at one time or another, the number one determining factor of suicide amongst Olympians was silver medalists, because you are. I mean, you won the silver medal. You're
it's like a double whammy.
World, but it's like you feel like I'm the first loser, and I just was so close to that, to gold. I was so close to that what I poured everything into, and I just didn't quite. So I'm just barely not good enough, or whatever that is.
And then you lose your identity. Then you're like, then the games are over, and it's like, now who the fuck am I? So I'm like, not only second place, the first loser, but like, I'm like, I don't need
in
to
their
get
minds,
tomorrow.
right?
Right, in their minds, of course.
And I've heard like the bronze medalists, they have a better sense of achievement or accomplishment than the silver medalists, because they're like, hey, I almost didn't get on the podium, right? And then the silver medalists are like, shit, I almost got gold, but I didn't quite have it. Right. It's wild to think about that. Well, right on, man. I know you've got a short timeline here, so we'll start to wrap it up. I've got one more question. Will, I'll throw it over to you after that.
No, go ahead, John. You got it. Keep rolling.
I mean, just from our conversation and what I know about you, Nate, it seems like you jump in before you know how deep the water is, right? You're like, oh, well, I'm just going to show up in Sudan. I have no idea what is going to happen. I'm going to go into the play for the Longhorns. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. for someone feeling stuck or uncertain about their purpose, maybe what their next step is, what would you recommend for them to start creating this new change or this new life? And how do you build the trust to move forward, even when you don't know what that next step or what the path is going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, I do get asked that a good amount, and I think it just depends on the individual for sure. But I think of it, I often think of things in, first of all, I'm a glass half empty guy. It doesn't mean I'm a pessimist. It just means I recognize I'm not satisfied with the glass being half full. Like I want to keep working until it's full, right? Um, so it's like I think people mistaken that for like, oh, you're just, you're Eeyore, you see the bad and everything. It's like, no, no, no. I just see the potential. I see the potential in this thing. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I wouldn't give it any time of my time of day. So, I just think it's sort of looking at it from, taking a step back and looking at it from the exterior and kind of some of the things we were speaking about, like, what is important to you? Like, what is the most important thing to you? And if look, if it's not really a priority, if it's just something you're interested in, or you think you'd like to try or whatever, and it's a big life shift, then maybe it's not worth it. But if it's something that's like continuously clawing at you, and you're just like, you can't stop thinking about it, and this can be relationships, this can be anything in your life, like, to let that just die on the vine and not try and cultivate something there is just crazy. I mean, we talk about it all the time, and so in society, it's like, well, the way that I live my life, people are like, that's crazy, you do all these crazy things. I'm like, no, crazy is spending your entire life doing something you hate because you thought you were worried about failing the other thing, and then like you're just like gonna live in that, forever. And you don't have to, like, of course we all need to work and do things we don't love to do to supplement our dreams at times. And even when you're living your dream, like I think I'm kind of doing, like, I'm doing the things that I'm still doing a bunch of shit I don't want to do every day. That's just part of it. Like, that's life. It's never going to be, you're just, oh, I just wake up every morning and I love my life and I love my job and I love my, everybody in my world. It's like, no, that's not the reality. But I am able to take that step back and be like, I'm very grateful and I'm glad that I'm at least trying to do these things, because I could take another path if it was strictly monetary goals. I think I've done enough in my past that I could probably find a very well paying job that would be maybe, comfortable and whatever, but it wouldn't be doing something that I'm passionate about. What I'm passionate about is storytelling and trying to make movies. And so that's what I'm doing now. We're in the edit now on an 80th anniversary D-Day documentary, which I think is super important. It's not going to make any money, but I think it's an important story to keep telling, and let these, we're tracking down these guys that are over 100 and letting them kind of tell their story one last time. And I love that. And it's like, it sucks so much of my time and energy and all this. And I could, instead of this, I could go do something that would be a lot more comfortable and less risky and all that. But I would always wonder, like, what if I would have just tried to make that movie? I wish I would have, and it would have been really cool to help carry on that legacy and tell that story or whatever that is. So I don't know. I just think that, to me, because it's not for everybody. Those prioritizing in that way is not for everybody. But for me, like, I have to, I just can't. I can't live any other way. I got to prioritize the things that I'm passionate about and find a way to supplement the rest. Find a way to pay the bills and feed the family and do those things. Like, there's a way to do it, though. There's always a way.
There is. There is. I think
Exactly.
that's what Will and I are doing right now, is trying to find
Yeah,
a way to
we have
supplement
been
this show.
for 5 fucking years. Right? It's slowly coming together, slowly coming together. But we love it,
I love
and
it. I
Yeah.
love it.
and one thing I think that and then we'll close. Is like, I think one thing that really helps people, and we hear it more from a lot of the guests we have, is like being around other people, being around other men, that are just help you to, kind of check your thinking or provide inspiration, let you know when maybe you're kind of fucking off and not like heading in the right direction. Um, Because I know that's been a part of my path too. It's just being around other great men like yourselves. Like, I mean, I'm in contact with Jon all the time, and we really help each other. So
No, you need that. You need, leaders don't have to necessarily have a higher rank or, be in a higher position, but like you need people that you do look up to the way that they live their life, and you aspire to be more like them, and they'll hold you accountable. Like if you don't have those people, it's gonna be real hard to do it on your own for sure.
yeah.
Amen to
Great
that.
point.
Amen to
Yeah.
that. Well, Nate, brother, this has been fantastic. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing your stories, for taking some time to practice some of your storytelling here, or share some of your storytelling rather. We've thoroughly enjoyed it, man, and love what you're doing all around with the making the movies, with the MVP. I mean, with everything that you're doing. So I hope that next time we run into one another, you don't give me COVID again, which I'll just leave. I'll leave the audience with the fact that Nate gave me COVID. I don't know whether that's true
fact,
or not, but
that's a theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Thank you for saying that, Nate.
Yeah.
Jon sounds a little dramatic, I gotta say.
Yeah.
And I'm just kidding.
But,
right?
but anyway,
Facts,
great
not
show,
feelings,
man.
Jon. Facts, not
That's
feelings.
right. That's right. Yeah, good stuff, man. Will, I'll
too,
turn it over
brother.
to you to wrap it up, brother.
No, that's everything, Nate. It's so great to have you today. Thank you for sharing. I'm putting to work in the world and living a life of passion, because I know, like, just being around somebody that's living a life of passion can actually maybe ignite somebody else to move in that direction too. So you're a beacon of light for so many, and that's Nate Boyer, everybody.
That's it.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank you,
everyone.
Will.
Thanks
Thank
for
you, Jon.
joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Pleasure,
Nate.
Nate.
And
Be
until
well,
next
brother.
time, everyone, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.